In 2018, Israeli spies broke into a secret warehouse in Iran and walked out with over 100,000 documents containing Iran's most sensitive nuclear secrets. No gunfights, no alarms. They simply stole a mountain of classified documents weighing half a ton and got away with it, making it one of the greatest heists and clandestine operations of all time. Now, how on earth did they do that? Welcome to Buried Origins. Today I'll explain how Israel pulled off this crazy operation, so let's get into it. Okay, so the obvious question to start off with is why were the Iranians storing their sensitive nuclear documents in a random warehouse that was so easy to get into? Well, the answer to that is rooted in the 2015 nuclear deal that Iran struck with the US and 5 other countries, which restrained its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. As part of that deal, Iran agreed to allow the UN's International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, to visit its sensitive nuclear sites to ensure it was complying with the deal. However, allowing the IAEA into their sensitive sites would mean allowing them to see what was going on there, which would be fine if the program was only civilian in nature. But Iran has long been accused of having a military component of its nuclear program for nuclear weapons research, although it has always denied it, saying that its program is strictly civilian in nature. But throughout the 2000s and 2010s, there was a lot of circumstantial evidence that Iran's nuclear program had a military component, such as the fact that it was enriching uranium far beyond what is required for civilian purposes, and direct testimony from Iranian defectors. But there was no real silver bullet that proved it. And proving it would be huge for Iran's enemies, as it would provide political cover and justification for a range of actions, from sanctions to military strikes. And after the Bush administration had lied to the American people about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq to justify that invasion, there was a new emphasis placed on hard evidence for action in the Middle East. This also came at a time when Israel was trying its hardest to undermine the Iran nuclear deal, as it wanted to pursue military action against Iran instead. So if Iran had been doing research on how to build a nuclear bomb, it wouldn't want the IAEA to find any of that research, and the IAEA was about to have access to all of the known or suspected sites affiliated with the Iranian nuclear program, which is obviously where you keep such research. And it was conveniently around this time that Israel's foreign intelligence agency, the Mossad, found out that Iran was planning to move a very large amount of documents related to its nuclear program to a random warehouse on the outskirts of the Iranian capital, Tehran. Not a secret military base or anything. It was a hide-in-plain-sight strategy. Now, that seems incredibly short-sighted, and we can only guess why Iran decided to do this, but perhaps they were worried that the IAEA would find these documents if they moved them to another military site, perhaps after being tipped off by US or Israeli spies. Now, unfortunately for Iran, they didn't know just how deeply the Mossad had infiltrated them. And according to a former Iranian president, a key reason the Mossad found out about this incredibly secret move was that the head of Iran's counterintelligence unit, which was tasked to hunt down Israeli spies inside Iran, turned out to be an Israeli spy himself, as well as 20 other agents in the same unit. So the person who was in charge of hunting down Israeli spies was an Israeli spy. So it was a perfect moment for the Mossad, as the Iranians were so confident in how secretive they were being, that they moved sensitive nuclear documents to a warehouse which a Mossad agent on the ground noticed wasn't even being guarded 24/7 because the Iranians didn't want to raise suspicion. It was just too much of an opportunity to miss, and so on the night of January 31st, 2018, a team of Mossad agents arrived at the warehouse, jammed the warehouse's alarm, and spent nearly 7 hours cutting through 6 of the 32 safes containing the documents. Their primary target were blueprints of the nuclear bomb that Israel accused Iran of planning to build. In total, they took 50,000 paper documents and 183 CDs containing 55,000 pages of information. The team left the warehouse with their massive trove of documents before the warehouse's morning security guards arrived at 7 a.m. When they did, the Iranian government was alerted and mobilized tens of thousands of security personnel to hunt down the thieves. Now, we actually don't know how the Mossad got a half ton of documents outside of Iran while being pursued by tens of thousands of Iranian security personnel. Because it's a secret operation. But a former head of Mossad suggested that they smuggled them out on a truck into Iran's neighbor Azerbaijan, and then getting them back to Israel from there would have been much easier. But we don't actually have any evidence of that. Okay, so just what did these documents actually reveal? Well, the biggest thing is that they proved Iran had a nuclear weapons program up until 2003, which was far more structured and ambitious than previously known, and that they had lied to the international community about it for years. The Israelis indeed found blueprints for nuclear warheads and documents outlining the intention to build 5 nuclear bombs. But from 2003, Iran effectively put the nuclear weapons program on hold. Now, why they stopped it is a longer story, which I discussed in another video that I'll link in the description. But these documents show that while Iran paused its attempts to actually build a nuclear bomb, it continued to research how to build one, under the guises of different civilian institutions. It wasn't technically building a bomb, but it was strengthening its knowledge and ability to do so if it wanted to. Since it was just research, that wasn't actually a violation of the Iranian nuclear deal, though. So although the documents did finally prove that Iran once had a nuclear weapons program they lied about, there's no smoking gun that Iran had tried to build a nuclear bomb since 2003. But Israel's Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu used the documents with some success to argue that Iran could not be trusted, and therefore the nuclear deal with it was foolish. He personally discussed the documents with President Trump, and a few days after the revelation, Trump withdrew the US from the nuclear deal. But the documents most likely simply provided political coverage for an action that Trump was going to do regardless, as he had long decried the deal. On top of that, the revelation damaged Iran's international credibility and gave valuable information to the IAEA for its investigations. Regardless, it was a key event for the region's history and easily one of the most successful clandestine operations ever conducted. Well, I hope you enjoyed that crazy story. If you did, please share and subscribe. See ya.